Hey, thanks for listening to the Primetime Fantasy Podcast. But first, I want to talk to you about our website, primetime-fantasy.webnode.com. There's a lot of information to be found on there, including the weekly articles that we're going to be posting throughout the season. Nick just posted his draft kit under his article section. I'm going to be posting mine soon. We're updating news and notes every day with the trades, cuts, other news that's happening around the league. There's a lot of information to be found on there, primetime-fantasy.webnode.com. The podcast is good. We thank you for listening to the podcast, but if you really want the full experience from Primetime Fantasy, you have to check out the website. And remember, the lights only shine brighter at Primetime. Enjoy the show, guys. Hello, gents. Welcome to the Primetime Fantasy Podcast. I am Garrett. I'm here with my co-host, Nick Castellian. Nick, our draft is in 10 days. Are you feeling confident?
I'm feeling confident. It's like the test that you study for, and, when you study, you know what you're doing, you feel confident. So I'm not going in there.
Well, when you study with Primetime Fantasy, you are definitely studying the right way. All right, we're going to get into some news and notes, stuff that's happened within the past week, and then we're also going to talk about our top 25 PPR rankings for running backs this season. We're going to add in some sleepers at the end, and you are in for a good show. Why don't we get into the news and notes?
All right. Starting with Lamar Miller.
Breaking news.
The Texans traded for Duke Johnson, so this has an impact on Lamar Miller. Duke Johnson had a role in Cleveland. He's a pass catcher, one of the best pass catching.
Immediately slides into the pass catching role on that team.
Right, third down role. He's a really good pass catcher, one of the best. He's kind of like a younger version of Theo Riddick in a way. They both were excellent pass catchers in their prime, and he's going to have a role on the Texans offense, and that will definitely impact Lamar Miller.
I had to change my rankings right before we started, slide Lamar Miller down a little bit. But yeah,
I think it's definitely worth a flyer to get Duke Johnson in PPR late in a draft.
I'm curious to see where his ADP rises to before I say that. But yeah, I think if he's like going in double-digit rounds, it's definitely someone you should look at. And then,
all right, let's get into the Texans cut D'Onta Foreman, and he signed with the Colts.
Now we know why.
And when the Texans cut D'Onta Foreman, I was getting excited about Lamar Miller, which
now
kind of got ruined because they
big roller
decided
coaster
to trade
with
for Duke Johnson.
Yes.
But D'Onta Foreman, is there much there, Garrett, or do you think he's just?
I trust Marlon Mack a lot more. I mean, my rankings won't show it, but because I think the running back position's deep. But I trust Marlon Mack a lot more with the running game. I don't think D'Onta is going to have that much of an impact. But if something were to happen to Marlon Mack, he's the kind of guy who can develop.
Yeah, I think he's
in practice.
I think he's a depth piece. They already have Nyheim Hines as their pass catching running back.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines, and I think D'Onta Foreman is third on the depth chart at best. So I don't think D'Onta Foreman's draftable in any leagues. He's someone that
Not yet.
You're going to be looking for if he pops on waivers.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. All right, so that is all of our news and notes for today. Let's get into the top 25 PPR running back rankings. I'm going to say that again, PPR, just so we're clear. And I will start at 25. We're going to go from 25 all the way up or all the way down to 1, however you decide to view it. And I'm going to start at 25 with Tevin Coleman from San Francisco. I originally had Lamar Miller in this spot, but due to the trade, I had to slide him down. Tevin Coleman is someone who immediately becomes, even if he's not the starting running back, he's the pass-catching running back. He's going to be someone who gets a lot of points just from receiving on that team. And it's going to be interesting to see how his role increases or decreases because of Matt Breida is a good running back, and I imagine he's going to be high in the depth chart as well. So I have Tevin Coleman 25th. I think his role rises throughout the year.
At 25, I got Lamar Miller, and he's just outside the RB2 range for me. Obviously, we just talked about them trading for Duke Johnson. I still think Lamar Miller's the first and second down back on that team. Duke Johnson's not a workhorse. He's not going to carry the ball 10 times, catch it 5 times a game. So Lamar Miller still has a role. He'll probably get overdrafted now if his ADP doesn't change or if you've already done your draft. But I have Lamar Miller at 25.
Where was he originally before the trade?
I had him at 21.
Okay.
And so he at best he was a low end RB2, but he's going to get some workload taken away, so I have him at 25 now.
Who do you have at 24?
At 24, I got Chris Carson, and he's down here because obviously we're talking PPR, and he's not a pass catching back. The thing I love about Chris Carson is last year he averaged 5.4 yards per carry and had 10 touchdowns. So that is fantasy gold right there, especially if you're getting them lower in the drafts.
It's value.
I do like Rashad Penny, but I still think Chris Carson is the number one.
He's the number one back
in that
right now.
backfield.
Yeah.
And he's a very talented player. I talked about this earlier. He's a lot better than his draft value would say because he was a late round draft pick in the NFL draft. And I think he's more talented than Rashad Penny, and I have him at 24.
Yeah. Chris Carson did not make my top 25. If it were standard, I probably would have him somewhere in there. But in a similar situation, I have Tariq Cohen at 24. And I'll say right now, David Montgomery is not in my top 25 like he used to be. Simply because if you're thinking about guys who are going to start day one, I think Tariq Cohen is going to be the guy from day one. Maybe David Montgomery's role increases throughout the season, but I'm thinking for the first quarter of the season, I just trust Tariq Cohen to be more of an impact player than Montgomery going into this season. That's why I have Tariq Cohen at 24. And at 23, we're also going to be noting our 3 overrated players or bust candidates as we go throughout the rankings. 23, I have my first overrated candidate, Damian Williams. There are a lot of people who have him in the teens. I'm not sure how he fits in this Kansas City offense. I think he definitely could explode and have a good year. He has a great quarterback and a great receiving game to kind of like take the eyes off of the running game in Kansas City. But he's either someone who's going to like boom or he's someone who's going to bust. And that's not someone who I'm looking to draft with a high round pick. So that's why Damian Williams is my first overrated player in my rankings. And I'm curious to see where his stock lies around midseason.
All right, for 23, I got Phillip Lindsay. And Phillip Lindsay was someone that boomed last year unexpectedly. Everyone thought it was going to be Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman in training camp last year was the talk of the town in Denver, and I was one of those that fell for it. I drafted him, and it ended up being Phillip Lindsay, who was the number one guy.
Yeah.
And I have him down here a little bit lower than you might expect because they did use a high draft pick on Royce Freeman. They went out and they signed Theo Riddick, which will get into the passing game. They didn't go out there and get him for no reason. So I do see a little bit of a downgrade for Lindsay this year, but at 23 in PPR, I don't see anything wrong there.
I don't see anything wrong there either. I still think he's the top guy there. I'm not sure how much of an impact Royce Freeman will have, if at all. So go ahead with your number 22.
At 22, I got Sony Michel, and he's down here obviously because it's PPR, and he is not a pass-catching running back. Michel had only 11 targets in 13 games, which is just a crazy stat. He didn't even receive a target per game, which shows how a low impact he has in that passing game and how much of an impact James White has in that passing game. So I have Sony Michel down here. If it was standard, he'd be higher. Last year, you've seen it. He's a touchdown machine. I don't see it, anything wrong with him getting 8 to 10 touchdowns this year. He's a goal line back. I have Michel here at this spot.
All right. And Michelle did not make my rankings. James White is a little higher, but you are right with the touchdowns, and I wonder how many he's going to have. At 22, I have Derrick Henry. Similar to Sony Michel, he's more of a goal line back, kind of gets a lot of touchdowns, not a lot of receptions. And he's someone who, in the Jacksonville Jaguars Thursday night game this past year, just exploded and had an amazing game. And he's prone to having, not prone, but he's like a guy who can have games where he explodes and just goes off like Marshawn Lynch-esque. And but I wonder if he does that this year. It's not every game that he does that. And he's someone who could definitely bust. He's not one of my 3 overrated guys, but he's someone who could definitely bust if you draft him too high. That's my 22nd. At 21st, I have Philip Lindsay. Nick covered a lot of it, but Philip Lindsay's a guy who I think is going to have more of an impact than Royce Freeman and Theo Riddick have. I think he's going to have more of a profound starting role than what Nick thinks he will. And Philip Lindsay is at 21.
You don't think he has much of a downgrade in the passing game with Theo Riddick, or do you think he'll still have?
I don't think Theo Riddick is going to do a whole lot. I think he's a little past his prime.
Well, I'm not arguing that he's not the same guy he used to be, but there's a reason why they brought him in.
They might try to incorporate him those first 2 weeks. If it doesn't work, the coaches over there are going to adjust.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think Theo Riddick is going to have as great of an impact as some might think he will.
All right, at 21, I have David Montgomery, and he's down here. PPR. Montgomery would be much higher in standard. I think he's going to be a boom this year as far as running the football. You just talked about Tariq Cohen. He's the pass catcher, and I have no problem with him being, just outside the top 25 for me. But for Montgomery, he's going to be the number one guy. He's going to carry the workload. He's a bigger, stronger, more durable back than Tariq Cohen. I view Cohen as kind of like a poor man's Tyreek Hill, where they have kind of the same role. They, shifty around the offense. They get the ball to them in different ways. And Matt Nagy was the offense coordinator in Kansas City, came over last year. You've seen what Tariq Cohen looked like. And I see Montgomery as the first and second down back, and he's going to have a decent workload. He'll be the goal line back as well, so I have him here.
I don't think he'll have that kind of impact the first quarter of the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if by midseason we are talking about him as one of the steals of the draft. Did I mention that was your 21st, right?
Yep.
All right, go ahead with your 20th.
At 20, I have Todd Gurley, and he's down here because of injuries.
Holy crap.
He's down here because of injury concern. He will play week 1. I have no doubt about that.
20th.
It's just the injury concern scares me off him, and I won't have him on any of my teams because he will get drafted ahead of more of these players that I have rated higher than him. He will get drafted higher. I'm seriously concerned. I have a serious concern about his workload. They brought back Malcolm Brown. The Lions offered him a contract offer. They matched it, so they obviously wanted him back. They drafted Darrell Williams. They traded up in the draft to draft him. I see 10 to 12 touches a game from Todd Gurley. I don't see 18 to 25 touches. And you've seen it last year in the playoffs. He looked beat up. He had bad arthritis in his knee. You've seen what the offense looked like in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. When he wasn't able to go, they were very pedestrian, and they know they have to protect him, and they are going to take a lot of his workload off.
I'm concerned too. I don't have him at I don't have him at 20, but I am a little concerned too. At 20, I have James White. I think he's going to be not as much of an impact in the red zone, but if you're looking for a quick flex to get you, 5, 6, 7 points based off of catches and small. Third down receiving points. That's going to be your guy. Not a whole lot to say on him. I think Sony Michel is going to be the touchdown guy over there. But I think he's someone who could easily, low floor, high, not, no.
Well, there's some weeks where the Patriots, they always have a game plan going in. It's different than most teams. Like they'll say, we're going to get this guy involved. And they have this certain game plan, and there's some weeks where James White will come away with 10, 12 targets. It's like, he's a sneaky good value. He's not in my top 25, but he's, along with Tariq Cohen, is that guy that's not a workhorse running back, first and second down, run the ball, but that pass-catching ability interests me just outside the top 25. And so I see where you're going with there. He is definitely a premium pass catcher.
Low ceiling, high floor. He's someone who you kind of know what to expect from him. At 19, I have Marlon Mack, and this is the only guy who I went through my rankings, and I just said this just does not look right. But I think the running back is a very deep position this year. Marlon Mack is someone who could easily be, is an RB2 with RB1 potential, and I think he's going to be drafted higher than where I have him ranked. But Marlon Mack, and I couldn't adjust my rankings because I just couldn't justify anybody who I have above him as definitively worse than who Marlon Mack is as a player and his role within the Colts offense. Great player. I hate to see him this low. We're running back's a deep position, and personally, I'm excited to see what role he has within the Colts. So Marlon Mack, I have at 19.
At 19, I have Devontae Freeman, and I have him down here because just like Todd Gurley, there's an injury history here. I'm worried about the concussions. He's not a big running back.
He's had great training camp though. Off-season workouts.
I know, but I'm worried about him running the ball between the tackles. They don't have Tevin Coleman there anymore. Ito Smith is not a threat to take away a lot of touches. So I see where there's upside with Freeman. He's a really good pass catcher. He's a good all-around purpose back, run catch. I'm worried about concussions. He's not a big guy. He's had a history of concussions, which scares me, and that's why I have him at 19. He's a better talent than 19, but again, injuries concern me, and that's why I have him at 19.
I don't have him that low, but I can see where you're coming from. Go ahead with your 18.
At 18, I have Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones, with all the reports, is he's going to be the number one running back there. I don't know how much Jamal Williams gets involved. I think he'll get a little bit, but I don't know what the Packers' plan is. If their plan is to say, you know what, we're going to give all the workload to Aaron Jones, or are we going to, midway through the season, shift to Jamal Williams? So that's why he's down here a little bit more. Any number one running back playing with Aaron Rodgers in that good Packers offense should be highly ranked, but he's down here at 18 for me.
You got to see his production value before you understand.
Right, he hasn't had like a full season track record to say this is what he is. He's the guy. There is a chance that Jamal Williams eats into some of that workload. I don't think it's a high chance, but that's why he's down here at 18. Aaron Jones, a good RB2 in PPR.
I agree. I have Josh Jacobs at 18. Oakland Raiders. I'm very curious to see what the offense looks like with the rookie at running back, Antonio Brown. John Gruden says he likes the Nate Peterman guy, so we'll have to see where he goes with that. Kidding, of course.
If Nate Peterman's a starting quarterback, I will never draft Josh Jacobs.
Neither will I. But and he's a guy who can receive the ball, run it. You saw him at USC. I'm very curious to see what his offense looks like within the John Gruden, or what his role looks like within the John Gruden offense. So Josh Jacobs, I have at 18. 17, I have Aaron Jones. You covered a lot of it. He doesn't have a track record, and I'm wondering to see, and maybe if they, make a trade for, not a trade, but if they sign one of these, veterans to kind of take away some of the workload from Aaron Jones.
There's a real chance that can happen because when they get the roster cuts after preseason, a lot of, vet players get shifted around. They'll get cut and picked up right away, so you have to keep an eye on that.
And if by week 4 or 5 they say, hey, this guy's not cutting it, let's try Jamal Williams, that's a big possibility
and that's why I have him a little bit lower. He'd be a high-end RB2 if he had a track record, but he does not have a season-long track record.
Yeah. Who do you have at 17?
At 17, so we have ours flip-flopped. I have Josh Jacobs at 17.
Okay.
You touched on it. We don't know what the Raiders' offense is going to look like, but I do know Josh Jacobs was drafted in the first round for a reason. They're going to get him the ball. I'm not worried about Doug Martin, Jalen Richard. Josh Jacobs is a 3-down back. He's young. He doesn't have a lot of wear and tear. Especially in Alabama, he didn't get used a lot. So I have zero concern.
He came from USC, didn't he?
No, Alabama.
No.
I have zero concern as far as Josh Jacobs being able to handle a workload. He's a bigger running back.
I agree.
I have him at 17 with upside.
A lot of upside there. A lot of upside with that pick.
At 16, I have Melvin Gordon here. If Melvin Gordon 2 minutes from now decides to say, you know what, he reports to the Chargers training camp, he will play week 1. Melvin Gordon right away slips into my number 5 spot, just behind my top 4.
Yep.
But we don't know that. You're taking a risk when drafting him because you don't know if he's going to show up or not. So you have to make sure if you're drafted before he shows up, you're taking on that risk. If he shows up and you're drafted after he shows up, take him as the 5th overall player, and you're fine. There is, he does have injuries throughout the season, but nothing that'll sideline him for a significant period of time. Melvin Gordon, there's not much to say here. He's a really good running back. He does everything. And he's at 16 for me because of the contract situation.
Yeah, he's a little higher on my list, but I'm right with you about the contract situation. Very scary stuff. And going into my 16, I have Kenyon Drake. There are a bit of reports about him having a shared workload with Kalen Ballage, the number 2 running back. But I think within 4 or 5 weeks, he's going to secure, even sooner than that, he's going to secure the number 1 running back job. He has all the talent in the world for it. Their offense is not going to look good with Ryan Fitzpatrick or Josh Rosen, whoever they decide to start behind that mess. And but I think the one shining star from the Miami offense is going to be Kenyon Drake.
You're not at all worried about the Dolphins will be one of the worst teams in football. They're going to be playing behind a lot. I don't see games where they're running the clock out at the end of the game trying to preserve the lead. I think there's a lot of
and
games,
that's a good point, too.
I think there's a lot of games where Ryan Fitzpatrick is gunslinging like he did in Tampa Bay, or if they have Josh Rosen, teams are not afraid of Josh Rosen. They'll load the box. I have serious concern with Kenyon Drake. Like you said, the football player's good. If he's on another team, I like him more, but he's on a bad football team. Kalen Ballage has been talked up in training camp. They do like him. I think it's more of a 60-40 split than a 70-30, 80-20.
Okay.
And so I don't have him in my top 25 for PPR. I think
Really?
you have him really high. And I'm worried because he plays on,
He is a risk
frankly,
pick.
one of the 3 worst teams in football.
Yeah, he's a boomer bust guy, similar to Damian Williams. But Kenyon Drake is someone who I think is someone who booms. I do think he has a bit of a receiving role, so even if Fitzpatrick is gunslinging, there's a possibility that he may be getting some targets coming his way. Did we go over your number 16 yet? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
At number 15, I have Derrick Henry. And Derrick
Really?
Henry is down a little bit because of PPR. If it was standard, he'd be a top
Down
12.
a little bit.
He'd be a top 12 running back in standard. He's goal line machine. I'm not the Titans are a good football team. They will be in a lot of games. They'll be leading in a lot of games, and they'll lean on Derrick Henry to run the clock out. He's a huge running back. I've never seen a running back as big as him. I've seen pictures of him and Deion Lewis together, and it's like 12th
Like DK
grade,
Metcalf,
it's like,
yeah.
it's like high school JV. It's just like I was bullish on Derrick Henry last year. I didn't draft him. Derrick Henry is one of those guys that'll run between the tackles. He's a goal line machine. 10, 12 touchdowns this year. I don't see any. I see 10, 12 touchdowns.
where would
easily.
he rank in your standard?
Standard, he'd be a top 12.
Oh,
Running
good
back.
lord. Okay.
But he is, like you said, it's PPR, so he's not going to catch a lot of balls. Deion Lewis is a pass-catching guy there. He falls down a little bit. But if Derrick Henry is my number 1 running back and I have 2 stud wide receivers, I'm okay with that. I'm not stressing about that because of his running touchdown upside.
Okay. At 15, I have Leonard Fournette. I'm really not concerned, but I'm just like confused by this player. He'll have one great season, and then the next season he'll be complete garbage. I don't know what, not complete garbage, but you get the point.
He had a bad year last year.
Yeah, and for his value, yeah. And I don't know what the offense looks like behind Nick Foles. I don't know if he's going to be passing a lot or if they're going to be running the ball more. So Leonard Fournette, just a weird player to me. Definitely RB1 upside, but I would take him as an RB2.
So he's a high-end RB2 for you?
Yeah.
He's not just outside that RB1?
Yeah, just really confusing guy. Jaguars are always a confusing team because they, great defense, horrible offense behind Blake Bortles at least.
You
I'm
don't
curious
think
to see.
that Nick Foles comes in and is a steady presence? Because Blake Bortles, it was a very below-average quarterback,
Yeah.
and they moved off him fast when they realized that. And so I think with Nick Foles, I think Leonard Fournette is in for a bounce-back year. And so, like you said, high-end RB2, low-end RB1, I think he's in for a bounce-back year.
Yeah, and for the Nick Foles Jaguars experiment, I got to see it before I believe it, personally.
Right, I don't think it's going to lead to playoff success.
Super Bowl.
any of that, but I do think he is a much better quarterback.
Could you imagine if the Jaguars won a Super Bowl? 2 Super Bowls in a row.
He's enough of an upgrade at quarterback to where I'm not as concerned on Leonard Fournette because Nick Foles is a lot better quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Number 14, I have Todd Gurley. He's a lot lower for Nick for the same reason he's lower on my list. This is my second overrated player. A lot of people are taking this guy as an RB1, expecting him to go off. but I am very concerned about the workload, about his injury history, and what the season looks like for him behind the Sean McVay offense. Is he going to get a lot of touches? We don't know. Is he going to be healthy? We don't know. A lot of question marks are surrounding him. Some people are taking him as like the RB10, RB11. Just not how I value Todd Gurley, and Nick clearly feels the same way. At number 14, Todd Gurley. He's my second overrated player.
At 14, I have Kerryon Johnson, and he's moving up my boards. I had him at 16, 17, 18 earlier. I have him down here because I'm worried about his goal line carry. They obviously brought in C.J. Anderson for a reason. Last year, the Lions didn't trust Kerryon Johnson in the red zone as far as running the ball at the goal line. They decided to give it to Garrett Blount for some reason, and that was a failed experiment. I wish they would give it to Johnson because that would be, his value would be RB1 that if he had 8, 9, 10 rushing touchdowns. But C.J. Anderson is an average running back, but
I'm not scared of him.
He's a good role player as far as he's going to get you that yard or two, and he's going to be that goal line back. He's
Big
an
dog.
upgrade over LeGarrette Blount. You've seen it last year. He looked really good for the Rams. He took over Todd Gurley's role, and he wasn't Todd Gurley, but he supplemented that pretty well.
He's all right.
Johnson is 3 down back. I'm not worried about, as far as a workload. I think he gets 18, 20 touches a game as far as running, catching the ball. And I am high on Kerryon Johnson, but he's a high-end RB2 because he doesn't quite get the goal line work that these guys in front of him will get, and they're more of a sure touchdown.
That's a good point. And he missed the last 4, 5, 6 games.
Yeah, he was injured
year.
last year, but he is healthy now, and we'll have to see what he looks like in the preseason.
For sure.
And even if he doesn't play, we know what we saw last year when he's healthy. He's a really good running back.
Yeah, and especially everything I've heard about this offense is supposed to be run heavy, run the ball first, so that
right. I don't
well
see any
favor.
concern with Johnson getting touches. I think he's 18 to 20 a week on average. So
I'm
I
right
don't
here.
see
Yeah,
anything there.
right there with you. At 13, was that your 14?
Yeah.
So go ahead with your 13
At
before
13, I have Leonard Fournette. You touched on it. The Jaguars, what's going on with the Jaguars? Are they going to be the team that made it to the AFC Championship game? Or are they going to be a meddling team? I think they're better than they were last year. Upgrade at quarterback. I think their defense bounces back. I think they're in a lot of games where they're running the ball at the end of the game, trying to preserve the lead. I'm higher on Leonard Fournette than a lot of people. A lot of people are scared off him. They're worried about his off the field concern. They're worried about, does he want it bad enough? I don't see a concern there. Leonard Fournette would be an RB1 for me if he was a good pass catcher. He's not a good pass catcher. So he's just outside. He's my number 1 RB2, if you will. And I see a lot of touchdown upside. He leads the league in goal line carries year in and year out, and I don't see that changing. I see, again, that 8, 9, 10 rushing touchdowns. I think it's a safe floor for Fournette. Does he reach 1,300 yards rushing? What yardage he gets? That's why he's down here a little bit, because I see that fluctuating between 1,100 to 1,600 total.
And I can't argue with your ranking on that. I think you're accurate. At 13, I have Melvin Gordon. Nick touched on it a lot, but he's someone who scares me because of his contract situation. We talked about it last week. The Chargers always do this to themselves, where it's they have these star players and they try to ruin it because they're just greedy owners, and I don't know who the owner's name is, but they're just not a well-run organization over there. Randomly moved to Los Angeles for Lord knows what reason, but that's a topic for another day. Melvin Gordon, if he reports back to the Chargers, he's my RB5. If he gets traded to a place like Tampa, he's still like a low-end RB1 for me, based on, I don't know what role he'd have in that offense. So at 13, I have Melvin Gordon. At number 12, I have Devontae Freeman. I am not concerned with his injury history at all. He has looked, from what I hear, he's looked great in training camp and off-season practices, and he's someone who is the clear number 1 running back. I think he's due for a bounce-back year, and I'm excited to see what role he has in Atlanta.
You're not concerned at all about his multiple concussions?
I think no.
So you would draft him and be completely confident in him being a low-end RB1, high-end RB2?
Yeah.
With zero concern about concussions?
No concern here.
All right. At number 12, I have Damian Williams.
Oh,
He's down a little bit from where I had him earlier because of the hamstring injury he had.
where'd you have him?
I had him at 9, 10, 11 area, so he's down
Oh,
the list.
Lord.
I don't think that's crazy at all. He plays in the best offense in football. You seen last year when he played, he had a 5-6 game sample size where he was just as good, if not better, than Kareem Hunt statistically. And if he is healthy, he is the number one running back in the best offense in football. I don't think that's crazy at all to have him at 12.
I'm curious to see what his role is. I'm curious.
Well, his role was last year. He was great. 5 game sample size. He was tremendous. He statistically was great. Like I said, he was almost better than Kareem Hunt, if not right on the same level.
All right.
I have no concern with Damian Williams at 12. I have him over Fournette and Johnson because I think he plays in a better offense than the Lions and the Jaguars. So.
Okay.
And I think Mahomes takes a lot of pressure off him as well because defenses
Oh, yeah.
are going to
No
be
question.
sagging off.
No question.
You're going to have 2 safeties deep. There's going to be a lot of reasons to like Damian Williams, so I see the risk is lower. I'm not as threatened by Carlos Hyde or Deontay
Well, yeah,
Thompson.
Carlos Hyde is no, sir. Hyde from Carlos Hyde, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was your number 12.
Yep.
So talk about your number 11 before I go
At
into.
11, I have Marlon Mack. If
okay.
Andrew Luck is indeed going to miss time, if he misses any period of time, that is a real concern for Mack. I had Mack at 9 before I heard about this little bit of, Andrew
issues,
Luck.
yeah.
Is he going to – the issues with Andrew Luck? I think Andrew Luck plays week 1. I don't think he misses time. So I'm confident in Marlon Mack. He plays in a top 3 offense, in my opinion. He has a great quarterback. They have a great offensive line. He runs behind Quentin Nelson, for God's sake. So Marlon Mack is a really good running back. He's not involved in the pass game a lot. That's one thing that does. That's why he's down at 11. If he caught 50, 60 passes, he would be up there with Nick Chubb and the guys I have above him.
Huh.
He doesn't catch the ball a lot, but I have Marlon Mack there. He last year averaged 4.7 yards per carry. He averaged 16 carries a game. I see a workload here that isn't going to change. 16 carries a game is nice. The Colts will be leading in a lot of games. Fourth quarter, they're going to run the ball.
Run that clock out. Yeah.
I see Marlon Mack having a very good year this year, and he's at 11 for me.
We have different rankings on Marlon Mack, but I can't argue with that. I think he's someone who you could slot from anywhere, all the way from like low end RB1 to low end RB2.
And I'm not. I actually like that they have Nyheim Hines there to take the third down passing game, because they have someone in that role. It's not like Nyheim Hines is a guy that'll cut into the running game. He may have a carry or two a game to spell him, but I like that the Colts have they have this.
They know what they're
they
doing.
have a depth chart where they
Yeah.
know what the offense was last year. It was like that, and so I like that they have Nyheim Hines in there as the third down passing back. He's not going to eat into the carries. If I get 16, 17 carries a game from Marlon Mack on average throughout the year, I'm getting what I want.
Who's the coach there in Indianapolis?
Frank
Head coach?
Reich.
Frank Reich, yeah. I forgot what his name, but he knows what he's doing over there. At 11, I have Kerryon Johnson. This is a little bit higher than where a lot of fantasy experts have him, but I think he's someone who, if I had a late round pick and I end up getting in a snake draft, I end up getting like a top wide receiver, and Kerryon Johnson is my RB1, I would be.
So you would
totally set
draft
with
him
that.
in round 2?
I would draft him. Yeah, you're right about that.
Because you're saying that he's up that high, he would be
He's more of a third round pick for me. Thank you for
a
for
very
asking.
he'd be like a very early third round pick.
Early third round pick. And in our draft, I have an early third round pick, so I may or may not be targeting someone with that. May or may not be targeting someone with that. But yeah, he's a third round pick, low end RB1, high end RB2, and I'm excited to see what his how clearly defined his role is within.
See,
the Lions
I
offense.
I talked just earlier about the concern about him being an RB1 because of the goal line carries. Do you think that he gets the 7, 8, 9 rushing touchdowns?
I think so.
All right.
He's-
I'm a little bit concerned about Anderson, and even Zenner will get some goal line carries. They like Zenner. They're gonna for some reason they're gonna go away from Johnson, and that's
the
hurts
Lions.
his fantasy value. So
Yeah. Did you talked about your number 11, right? So at number 10, I have Dalvin Cook. he has all the potential in the world to, be a great RB1, and he has all the potential in the world to injure his knee in week 2 and be out for the rest of the year.
Right.
So he's someone draft with concern, get some backups. You might want to handcuff Alexander Madison very late in the draft. And I'm not overly concerned, but there is a good amount of risk when you take Dalvin Cook.
When you're taking Dalvin Cook, you're going to have a headache. Because you're going to be worried every single week. Is he playing? Is he... I don't see Dalvin Cook playing 16 games and there being zero game time decision. Is he playing or is he not?
Really?
I could see him playing 13 games, but is he going to play 16 games? No concern. There's going to be weeks where, at least he's going to be game time decision. Is he playing? Is he not?
I think
That's
over
what it was
time
last year. So, no questioning Dalvin Cook's ability. It's just his health.
Dalvin Cook's your number 10 too, right?
Yeah, so I'll talk about Dalvin Cook here. He's number 10. And I got a stat here that really scared me the last, hour or so when I figured it out. He's played 2 years in the league, and out of the potential 32 games possible to play, he's only played 15 of those games. Under 50% of those games he's played. That is a real red flag.
I want to believe it'll get better over time.
But the positive here, if there is to take away any positive, is he's another year off that injury. So he's not. Last year he came off the injury. He was battling, trying to get back to 100%. He's another year removed from the injury.
Right.
He's healthy going into the season. There's no training camp concern where he doesn't look right. He plays in a above average offense, above average quarterback. He's in position to succeed. So I don't want you to be totally concerned. Say I'm not drafting because of
you just said he'd have a headache if you draft.
The 15 out of 32 games that he's played, because he is another year removed. You just got to know when you're drafting him that there's this chance where week in, week out. I feel more comfortable drafting Dalvin Cook if I have another running back higher. If I have, let's say, if I have, Ezekiel Elliott.
Right.
Who's reported. Obviously, I don't want to have Elliott where he's not reported. Let's just say this. Let's just say this. If I have Alvin Kamara on my team.
Okay, yeah. That's a better example.
Yeah, that's a better example. If I have Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook's my RB2, then I feel better because Dalvin Cook has...
If you take Elliott and Dalvin
Cook has top 10 RB1
myself, that'd be hilarious.
So I have him at number 10.
Yeah, we both have him at number 10. Number 9, I have Le'Veon Bell. He's my third and last overrated player. A lot of people have him in the 5, 6, 7 spot. Even if Nick just raised his hand. Even if Melvin Gordon were to report, they still have Le'Veon Bell above him. That just does not make sense to me. I think he's playing behind a head coach who likes to play in a slower paced offense, and a second-year quarterback who is just average at this point. I don't know if he'll get better this year, but his O line is, I don't want to say it's bad, but it's not great.
Middle of the pack.
Yeah, middle of the pack offensive line. That would be my only concern with him. If he ends up having a more defined role, more of a pass catching role throughout the year, you're gonna find good value in him. But he's my number 9 just because I'm concerned, and everybody that I have above him is a safer pick for me than Le'Veon Bell.
At number 9, I have Nick Chubb, and this is a guy I really love. I picked him up on waivers last year when they traded away Carlos Hyde, and I reaped the rewards of that, and he played really well, and he showed that he can carry that RB1 workload. Yeah. He's a big running back. To me, he's like a Devontae Freeman, but he's bigger.
Yeah.
He's a bigger Devontae Freeman, and so I see less injury concern. He averaged 5.2 yards per carry last year. That's incredible. He's the goal line. He's the goal line running back. They just traded away Duke Johnson.
Yeah, he becomes a must-start.
And Nick Chubb is an underrated pass catcher. He definitely is a good pass catcher. How many catches does he get? Obviously, he's playing in the offense with Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, David Njoku. There's mouths to feed on that offense, so yeah. I don't think he's
first-year head coach.
I think he's going to get 80 catches, but I think he can get 50, 55 catches
throughout the course of
to go
the year.
With his running game and his goal line carry. He plays in. The Browns will be good this year. Will the Browns be Super Bowl contenders? That's to argue, but they will be competitive this year. They have a young, flashy quarterback that'll be exciting. They're going to ride Nick Chubb. when they get in the goal line, it's Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt isn't there until week 11. So it's going to be Nick Chubb. I have zero concern drafting Nick Chubb in the second round. It's just as far as where do you have your guys ranked. If Nick Chubb was in the second round and the guys above him were gone, I would take Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
And I have zero concern of him being an RB1 this year in fantasy.
Yeah, especially with Duke Johnson being traded away. He's my number 8, Nick Chubb is. And with Duke Johnson being traded away, he becomes no doubt RB1.
He will be involved even more in the pass game. That's just all that says right there.
And if when Kareem Hunt comes back, I don't think, and you and I talked about this a little bit ago, I don't think Nick Chubb goes away immediately, right? Because he's had at that point he'll have 10, 11 weeks,
Right.
depending on when their bye is to prove himself. And Kareem Hunt's not going to just
And
take
what's
it all
not
away.
being said is Kareem Hunt in this suspension cannot be at the Cleveland Browns facility, cannot be around the team practice,
Right.
any of that. So Kareem Hunt, right now, week 12 is realistically when he can actually play.
Yeah.
And then is he going to be good? He's not going to jump in and start being the Kareem Hunt that he was in Kansas City. So he's going to have to learn as he goes. I don't think this is the year for Kareem Hunt. I think he has to learn the offense. He's going to be behind Nick Chubb. I think he's a lesser running back than Nick Chubb. I actually like Nick Chubb better, and that's not a personal, issue with off the field stuff. I think Nick Chubb's a better running back, but Kareem Hunt has to learn the offense. At best, at week 13, 14, that's when he'll start getting workload. And by then, you're already getting the benefits of having Nick Chubb.
It's already playoffs at that point. So,
Right.
So Nick Chubb's my number 8. Nick Chubb is his number 9. Who is your number 8?
At 8, I have James Conner, and I love James Conner here at 8. He's in a very good offense. There's going to be a lot to prove in Pittsburgh this year. There's going to be a lot of this. You don't have Antonio Brown. You don't have, Le'Veon Bell anymore.
Yeah.
What's it going to look like? And I think you're getting a very motivated Ben Roethlisberger. You're getting a very motivated James Conner.
Juju,
James
too.
Conner played very well last year.
Yeah.
And even if he has a slight regression, I'm talking slight, right there at number 8, I don't see anything wrong with
There's
getting
nothing
James
wrong,
Conner in the 9, 10, 11, 12 area in the draft. I don't think I would take him over, my top 2 wide receivers.
Right.
Or the running backs I have ahead of him. But you're getting James Conner 9, 10, 11. You're getting a sturdy guy. No real injury concern here. I don't see Jalen Samuels eating a lot of workload. I think it's a 70-30 split as far as snaps in the backfield, and I think James Conner is going to be.
And there were reports of them being like 50-50 split. That's not real. Not not buy that.
I think good team. They're going to be competitive. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everyone's saying they're going to be written off. They're not. They're behind Baltimore and Cleveland. I think Pittsburgh's going to have a lot to prove. I think James Conner is a beast in the red zone. He gets those touchdowns. He's a good pass catcher. He's not Le'Veon Bell in the receiving game, so I have him lower, but have him at number 8, and I would love to get him at the end of the first round.
He's my number 7, and I completely agree with everything you just said. So why don't you go ahead with your number 7?
At number 7, I have Joe Mixon, and this is a guy that, for some odd reason, is not well received. I don't know if it's because of his off-the-field concerns, but Joe Mixon is an absolute stud running back, all-purpose, 3-down back, running, receiving. I'm not worried about Giovanni Bernard eating workload. Bernard's there if he's needed with an injury. But Joe Mixon at 7, he averaged 4.9 yards per carry, and the best stat I love it all, he had 17 carries a game. If I know I'm getting 15-plus carries a game, that is rock solid week in, week out production, averaging close to 5 yards a carry on 17 carry. You're talking 80, 90, 100 yards a week. It gets you that touchdown. I don't see fluctuating. I don't see him being inconsistent. I think he's rock solid, 80, 90 rushing yards a week. He'll get you that 20, 30 receiving. I love Joe Mixon at 7.
And in that second tier, right below all the elite guys, he's the safest option. He's my number 6. He's the safest option in that second tier of guys. And if I end up with Joe Mixon, I will be excited. I doubt. Because I think he's a second-round pick.
The only red flag on Joe Mixon is the Bengals' offense is below average. It's a bad offense.
They have new coaches here. So
right.
I'm excited
but the Bengals overall are not a good football team. They're going to be trailing in a lot of games. The the counter argument to this would be, is he going to be carrying the ball in the fourth quarter, running the clock out? But to me, that doesn't matter because I think he's going to get his carries first three quarters.
Yeah, he's going to get all his workload, yeah.
I think he gets 17 carries in the first three quarters, and if they're leading, he gets 23, 24 carries to end the game.
I hear you.
So I don't see them being a bad football team. They don't really have much on that team. Really, it's A.J. Green. We don't know when he's coming back, so they're going to have to rely heavily on Tyler Boyd. It's
Tyler Eifert, who gets injured a lot.
Right. So it's Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd. That's the offense. And I see them relying heavily on Joe Mixon. They have a young defense that I like, but the Bengals overall, they're going to have to rely on the running game, and that's why Joe Mixon gets a plus here at 7.
Do you think Andy Dalton is the starting quarterback? Not like
do I think he
next year?
Do I think he's
in
the
a year
starting
from today?
quarterback
Do you
for the
think,
Bengals?
Yeah. Do you think he's the starting quarterback in a year from today? Do you think he's still that guy, or do you think they're trying to go after a guy like
I think he's
Tua?
I think he's the starting.
Perfect timing. Welcome to the show. Someone wants to be on the podcast. Who is it? Who's calling you?
No, it's my alarm.
Oh, it's your alarm.
Yeah.
All right.
No, but to get back into, do I think Andy Dalton is going to be the starting quarterback to start next year? Yes, I do.
Interesting.
But that doesn't mean I don't think they're going to address the QB situation. I think this is a situation where they draft a guy, and it's kind of like what's going on in Washington. They'll have Dwayne Haskins. They have him third on their depth chart. They'll redshirt him. Same thing with Drew Lock in Denver. It's kind of what is happening with young quarterbacks these days.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them are ready to jump in the NFL
Aaron
and
Rodgers
play week
approach.
one. They're not a lot of them are ready to jump in, play week one. They're not all pro ready. I think Andy Dalton has this year and next year with the Bengals, and I think they move off his contract after that.
Interesting. And he's my number 6. So who do you have? David Johnson at number 6?
Yep.
Yeah, and I have him at my number 5. He had a bad year last year, I think it was, but he has all the potential to bounce back and just be a solid RB1.
But to say a bad year, obviously he didn't live up to the expectation, but he still finishes a top 10 running back in fantasy last year. That makes you comfortable saying a bad year with Josh Rosen, with the fluctuating bad team.
Right.
He still finishes a top 10 fantasy running back. We assume that Kyler Murray's going to take the pressure off him. They drafted a couple receivers. Their whole offense, we have no idea what it's going to look like.
A new head coach, Cliff, yeah.
But David Johnson, I mean, this floor there is safe for me.
High
no
floor.
real injury concern. He finishes the top 10 running back last year in a bad offense. So I see the offense can't get much worse. They have a young, exciting Kyler Murray. I see him and David Johnson running,
He lives right up to that number 5 value where most people have him.
And
ranked.
I have him at 6. And so,
okay, yeah.
And the guy I have above him, and you're going to laugh, but I have Le'Veon Bell. And I think people forget how good Le'Veon Bell, the football player, is. And I'm not concerned that he plays on the Jets, who are a lower tier team than the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people are saying the Steelers made Le'Veon Bell. No, Le'Veon Bell made Le'Veon Bell. He's his own guy. He's he's the best receiver running back that I've ever seen. McCaffrey can make a push for it because he's really good, but Le'Veon Bell,
he's shifty.
There's not much to say about he's a great football player. He plays I would say the Jets are an average team this year. You did touch on Sam Darnold being a second-year quarterback. I think that actually helps Le'Veon Bell as far as they're going to try to, protect Sam Darnold. Let's not expose him throwing deep balls. There's going to be a lot of dump-offs.
Yeah.
I brought this up to you a while back, and they say the QB's best friend is the tight end. Well, Sam Darnold's best friend is Le'Veon Bell. And I predict 90 catches easily. 90 catches. It's a floor 90 catches. And I think he can get up to that 100-catch mark where Christian McCaffrey is, where Barkley could get.
Yeah.
And so Le'Veon Bell's number 5 for me. PPR, he's going to be a monster. Even if he does only get, let's say he finishes the year with 8 touchdowns, the total yardage, the receptions, PPR.
It's going to add up.
He's number 5, and I don't see a concern. The Jets' O-line actually is better than people think, but it's not as good as the situation in Pittsburgh where there's Antonio Brown taking coverage. They had Smith-Schuster. They had the system in Pittsburgh scares people as far as, is Le'Veon Bell going to be the same player? I have zero concern, number 5, and I think he has top 3 upside.
Yeah, and he's still like a running back 1, even if I have him ranked at number 9. He's still a guy that could easily be the number 1 guy. to found your offense on, or not found your fantasy team
Right.
on. And just talking about Le'Veon Bell, the player, he changed like the way running backs approach the game. Like they're a lot more, because his way of like waiting and
Yeah,
like,
he's a
finding the right hole,
patient runner.
Yeah, he changed the running back game forever.
Right.
So he's my number 9, and he's your number 5.
And there's no real injury concern with him. And a lot of people are, I don't know why people are down on him that he missed a year, because for a running back, that can only benefit you. It's not like he took 400 touches. If he had 400 more touches from Pittsburgh, he came off a year where he's banged up a little bit, he had a knee, shoulder, whatever the case is, then I'm down on him. He had a full year of no contact.
And he's still in shape.
That can only help a running back. That getting 400, he would have had 400 touches in Pittsburgh. That is a workload that, that's an extra mile on your legs. You can say he's getting older, but he had a year off, no injury concerns. There's a lot of players that like are shifty and know how to like get hit, and he's kind of one of those guys where he doesn't really get popped, and
he's still in shape too. Like if he took a year off and he's looking, a little chubby, a little
But
sluggish,
even if it takes him 3 weeks to get back into football shape, get me back to where I was in
Take a lot more
Pittsburgh,
than 3 weeks,
I'm
right?
fine with that, because the player is worth drafting there.
Okay. Number 4, I imagine we have the same player, Ezekiel Elliott. Obviously, he's not. He said he's not going to play unless he has a deal. That scares me a good amount. If you're at that number 4 spot in your fantasy draft, I'd probably take DeAndre Hopkins over Ezekiel Elliott at this point.
You would?
If I were, just hearing that, unless he reports and says, "Hey, I'm playing
Right,
week
but
1."
where are you targeting Elliott? Obviously, targeting is
He's still round 1
term, because he's never going to fall to you in the second round. Say, I'm going to target him here. Are you? What pick in the first round do you get to where you're saying I will target
6th or
Elliott?
7th?
6 or 7?
Yeah, because I think you could make an argument for, like not Devontae Adams, but I'm thinking actually 5 or 6, because I couldn't pick Devontae.
So if you
over.
were at pick 4 and the order's good, most 90% of drafts is going to be Barkley, McCaffrey, Kamara, in somewhat of an order. Those 3 guys. So you're at 4. And you're saying, okay, and if your draft is before he reports, this is a real. You have to think about this.
Yeah.
Because if he reports and Elliott plays, he has number 1 RB upside, number 1 fantasy player upside.
It's a huge
We were
risk.
just talking before we got on, and I was a little bit surprised. He had 95 targets last year.
95 targets.
He had
In a receiving
77
game,
receptions. Ezekiel Elliott gets 77 receptions and plays a full year. He is going to be a top 3 RB. So if you're at 4, there is that concern of, if he hasn't shown up yet, do I take him? You got to go with the gut instinct. Are you taking that risk? Because the risk could pay off, but it also could set you back.
Well, you just hyped me up, so I might have to take that risk. But it's
because the
definitely
risk is there.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't play, you just
If
use
you
your
Le'Veon
first
Bell
round
this
pick.
year, yeah.
If you just lost your first round pick, but if he does play, I mean, is there a safer player in fantasy football than Ezekiel Elliott? I don't think there's a safer player.
If he reports, sure. Yeah.
Right. Because you could nitpick Kamara, McCaffrey, say they're not as big. They could get in it. They're not bigger backs that could get injured. You could say Barkley has to face 8-man boxes, and it's just impossible for him to run.
Yeah.
So you can make arguments for a couple of these other guys. If Elliott plays football, he is the safest player in fantasy week in and week out. There's no safer player. Wide receivers can have up and down weeks. Ezekiel Elliott is the safest player in football when he plays.
Yeah.
And that's the key term, when. So you have to make that decision. We both have him ranked as number 4.
Okay.
If you're at 4 in the draft and those 3 go, well, you better pray.
Prime time.
Right.
The lights are on.
If that was me, if I was at 4, I would pass on the risk. If
You'd pass on it.
our draft is in a couple weeks, if he's not reported, I would tend to pass on him, because if I get Johnson, Mixon, Connor, I get a for sure RB1.
Yeah.
And I'm not risking this whole Le'Veon Bell thing. So for me, although there's RB number 1 upside, I'm taking a little bit safer pick. But if Elliott fell to the second round, there's no way I'd pass him.
Well, I don't think anyone would.
No,
pass
he
it.
wouldn't. But
Yeah.
I'm saying if he did, if a lot of people were concerned and they're like, you know what, I don't want to eat that risk. If he fell to the second round, I would take him.
So would I.
But
think,
if I had the 4th pick, which I do not have in any drafts right now, I would pass on him for another player.
and if you had the 5th or 6th pick, I think that's the lowest.
I would not pick him 5 or 6 either, because of this. if he shows up, there's no question.
Where's the highest you're taking him?
I would say, with the situation now where we
Yeah.
don't know if he's playing or not,
Yeah.
I would have him behind Nick Chubb, James Conner, Joe Mixon. So he would be at number 9 with this situation.
Yeah.
But that's not that much
Yeah.
of an exaggeration because we don't know.
We don't know.
If
We
he
really don't.
What if he's like, you know what, I'm going to be because Le'Veon Bell.
I'm gonna take a year
whether you agree with it or not, he still got guaranteed money. He got 30+ million guaranteed, so he got money that he didn't get what he thought he would get, but he still got that money. Ezekiel Elliott may say, you know what, they think I'm joking around. I'm gonna go through with this. I know I'm a great football player. I deserve to be the number 1 paid, not the second or third. I deserve to be the highest paid running back in football. Give me the money, or else, guess what? You're not going to have me, and they're going to have to rely on Alfred Morris, and that's just what they're going to have to deal with.
Do you think he gets paid before
I think he
Melvin
gets
Gordon?
paid.
Before Melvin Gordon. Who do you think gets paid first, Melvin Gordon or Ezekiel Elliott?
I think Elliott gets paid first. I think Elliott, for me, if I'm drafting end of August, beginning of September, I think Elliott will have signed at the end of August.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself as far as when I say I would have concerns drafting him for. But that's actually having the draft without him there.
Yeah.
I'm not, plugged into the Cowboys, so I can't say I talked to Elliott or anything. But do I think he will show up week 1 of the regular season?
So do
play?
I.
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
I would lean more on the 51-49% that he will show up. So he's still a first-round pick. Where you want to draft him, that's your risk tolerance.
Yeah, and the thing
he has
with
not shown up.
And the thing with Elliott is that the Elliott and Melvin Gordon, I wonder if they're waiting to see who gets paid first, so they could be the higher paid guy.
I think for Melvin Gordon, it's not necessarily being the number 1. The last number I saw was $10 million that the Chargers had offered him.
Yeah, and he turned out.
I think he wants to get, guaranteed money. I think he wants to get 12, 13 a year. I don't think he's necessarily saying I have to be $15 million a year.
Right.
15.5 for Le'Veon Bell. I don't think he has to get that number. I think he wants a little bit more guaranteed, $12 million instead of 10 over a 3-4 year contract. That is, $6-8 million. So I think Melvin Gordon is not looking at the number 1 paid running back as far as Zeke Elliott wants to be number 1, and he deserved to be because he is, you can argue he is the best.
He's safe, and if he ends up showing up, he's probably the safest option in terms of like the offense he plays in and all that.
Right.
You're gonna be surprised at my number 3. I have Saquon Barkley, and
is it because of the football player, or is it because of the team he plays on?
The situation he's in. I wonder if he goes into a sophomore slump. I wonder if they stack up the box against him, say, hey, Eli Manning, Daniel Jones, we're not scared of you. We're not scared of your receivers either because Golden Tate.
Average.
A lot of their guys.
A lot of average, yeah.
A lot of average on that team. And he has all the potential to be the number 1 running back this year. I think he can be the number 1 running back this year. But it's just, I think the 2 players I have above him, you already know their names.
You think they're safer?
Those are safer players, in my opinion, than Saquon Barkley.
My counter argument to this, and I have Barkley rated higher, but Barkley, last year wasn't a great situation either. He came into a team. Eli Manning was a quarterback, and Eli Manning at this stage of his career is a below-average NFL quarterback. He's not mobile. Their offense is not a fast pace. He played in an offense that was below average. He had 15 touchdowns last year. That is very good for a rookie. And what if he has 13 touchdowns? That's still going to be top 3 RB potential. So I don't see a drop off where he's 8-9 touchdowns. He had 121 targets last year. They traded away Odell Beckham. I don't think he gets 100. I don't think he gets 130, 140 targets. That's absurd. But I think he gets 110 targets.
Yeah.
I see a little regression, but 110 targets. He had 91 catches last year. I don't see his overall yardage going down. His efficiency may go down because they stack the box. He may average, less yards per carry.
And maybe that's what I keep thinking about is his efficiency and not the numbers added together.
But the thing I like about Barkley and why I have him as my number 1 player is the home run ability. He is the best player in football as far as hitting a home run. McCaffrey is a nice player. He's more down. He'll get you that 10, 15. He's not going to bust a 70-yard touchdown.
Right.
Barkley last year had how many plays did he have where he just blew by a defense? He had multiple 40-plus yard touchdowns which in fantasy you can get bonus points for. And and so Barkley to me
Quick tidbit.
is the number one out of the top three. You can move these guys however you want, but his home run ability and the overall he can handle a workload. His home run ability makes him the number one player because he is going to hit home runs. And I think week in and week out, I don't see many bust weeks from him.
Yeah, and I don't see any bust weeks from him either. That's why I have him at 3. He's
Yeah,
still in that elite tier.
and like you said, the top three, you can kind of move them around, and it's whoever you feel most comfortable with. If you feel more comfortable with the offense that McCaffrey and Kamara playing, then that right there is a sound argument. I just think the home run ability and the overall workload, Barkley is there at 1.
Yeah, and he's in my number 3. My number 2, I believe your number 3 is Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's someone who, this is my favorite player. This is my favorite football player today because he is, he can hurdle. He has all the moves you need. He's just a shifty guy. When he's catching the ball, when he's running the ball, he's just a fun player to watch. But talking about the fantasy player, he's someone who's going to get a lot of touches, a lot of targets. He's very safe player. That New Orleans offense, that's my Super Bowl team. That's my Super Bowl prediction. I'll go on record. I think the Saints are going to take it this year, and that's going to be a fun offense to watch.
You're not worried at all about the Drew Brees first half of last year. He was very good. He was an MVP, top MVP candidate. Is Drew Brees going to win it? He had 29 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He looked phenomenal first half of last year. Second half, he looked very, and it's weird to say this, but he looked very mediocre, and his stats resemble that. So are you not at all worried about Drew Brees? Because not every quarterback can age like Tom Brady does. Are you at all worried about Drew Brees not having the ability to carry the team like he used to? And do you think that Kamara takes that reign and carries the offense as far as...
I'm not concerned because that's Drew Brees, and this is Alvin Kamara. And I think Alvin Kamara is going to be a guy, and it might contradict my argument with Saquon Barkley, but I think he's someone who can take the load, who can just see the box stacked up and just, you know what, I'm going to get past him.
But an also pro for this argument for Kamara is he doesn't need a massive workload to be a very efficient. He's a very efficient running back.
Yeah.
So you're not reliant on he needs to get me 22 touches a week.
Right.
He can. I believe last year the stat was he averaged 18 touches a week because Mark Ingram was there, and he still finishes the top 5 fantasy running back.
Yeah.
So I see a very high floor here. He's a very efficient running back. He plays. I tend to believe that Drew Brees still has one more year in him. So
yeah.
I would say that. They have an elite wide receiver. Sean Payton, a mastermind play caller. I don't see Kamara falling off. I think Drew Brees has one more year left in him. Is it going to be, all pro, or is it going to be very good? I think more very good. But I see Kamara, even if he only gets 17, 18 carries a game, or touches rather, he's going to be still in that top 5 running back. I think he's got a
big playability, and
right.
that's why he's my favorite player to watch because because there was one play I was watching, I think he was playing the Chargers, and he had like 3 guys in front of him, and he hurdled one, and he just like dove right in between two. So, I'm like, sheesh, like he really knows.
It is notable to mention that they went out and got Latavius Murray, and it's not like they signed him to a 1-year deal. They got him to a 3-year deal. In the offseason. So they signed him for 3 years. That means they have a plan for him. They didn't bring him in for 1 year and say, we can cut him at training camp. We don't like him anymore. So I think Latavius Murray fits into that Mark Ingram role. But again, like I said, the overall workload, Kamara's efficiency allows him to have a lower touch total and still be efficient enough to be a top 5 running back. So that's why he's being, for me, number 3.
And for me, number 2. And then my number 1, his number 2, Christian McCaffrey. And we talked about it here. He's in the elite tier. I mean, if Ezekiel Elliott shows up, this won't be true. But he's the safest player, in my opinion, in that top 3 range, in the top 4 range for
You think he's safer than Kamara?
Yeah, because
I could see a world where Cam Newton re-aggravates his injury and gets hurt, and they have to throw in Will Grier, and like you talked about with Barkley, I can see a world where defenses are like, you know what, you're going to have to beat us through the air because we're going to shut down.
Suck, yeah.
I'm not going to judge Will Grier because I've never seen him play in the NFL.
Neither have I.
As far as, what if Will Grier gets thrown in the fight? What if Cam Newton gets hurt? and then the offense has to shift, and defenses are stacking the box, just like you were talking about Barkley. Do you think McCaffrey? Do you think he's the safest player in fantasy?
I might switch it now
Because it may not be McCaffrey.
I didn't think
injured,
about Cam Newton, but yeah.
But Cam Newton, he's 30 years old. He does have that shoulder injuries coming off him.
Yeah.
If Cam Newton takes a big hit and is injured and misses time,
McCaffrey's value significantly drops.
I wouldn't say significantly, but he does fall a little bit. You're not going to get, it helps that Cam Newton's there because defense had to plan for him. That read option, defense had to plan hard for Cam Newton, and it's a benefit to have him there over Will Grier. So there is that little bit of concern that if Newton re-aggravates his injury, that McCaffrey could see stacked boxes.
Yeah, I'm going to switch my 1 and 2 now because I think I'm going to put Kamara at my number 1 and then McCaffrey at 2.
And I just want to touch base on McCaffrey. Obviously, he's great. Last year, he had 107 receptions for 867 yards. That is elite. That's like a
college football number.
That's like a wide receiver 3 and a running back 1. Like you're getting almost 900 yards receiving. I mean, 107 receptions PPR. That's a lot of points. I mean, we're talking about McCaffrey. There's not a lot to discuss. Everyone knows how great he is. I have him too because I don't think he's the home run hitter that Barkley is. I think Barkley is a better talent. Like he's a freak athlete.
Right.
Barkley to me is like the best athlete in the NFL, and so I have Barkley higher because of the home run hitting.
Yeah.
McCaffrey may have 10, 15
His big
more
playability
catches.
is the highest out of everyone.
Yeah, McCaffrey may have over the course of the season 10, 15 more receptions, but I think they're going to be right there, neck and neck.
Yeah,
they're going to be neck
for
and neck.
yards,
It's
all-purpose
just
yards.
Who do you prefer? Do you prefer the home run hitter get you big plays, or do you prefer the
safer option,
steady get
steady.
you receptions?
Yeah, so I'm right with you on that. Those are our rankings. Very heated last 4 to talk about. So now we're going to go into our sleepers. These are guys who are outside the top 25. When you're drafting,
outside our top 25,
our top 25, and when you're drafting, they're going to be outside the top 60 players drafted first. They're guys that are not being talked a lot, and just people that like you wouldn't expect to break out, but definitely have a high chance to succeed this year.
Right. Well, a couple of my players are impressing in training camp to the point where like reporters are reporting on it. And so some of these players are being talked about, but this is sleepers means outside the top 60,
common player,
common person drafting
isn't going to
these are players that you want to listen to because these are guys that can help literally win you your league, because some of these picks, if they boom, especially at the running back position, it can carry your team.
Yeah.
And so I'll get into my number 1 sleeper. And I was just talking about Jordan Howard. We did our mock draft, and I was talking about Jordan Howard being the starting running back. I drafted him late in the draft. I said he's my number 1 running. Miles Sanders, Philadelphia. He's my number 1 sleeper.
Rookie.
Yeah, rookie. Everything you see out of training camp is this guy is going to be the number 1 guy. They're not worried about Jordan Howard. So I was wrong on the Jordan Howard part. He still has to go out there and prove it. So we'll see in the preseason. Miles Sanders, everything you read out of Eagles training camp is he's going to be a very good running back.
Yeah.
So I have him as my number 1 sleeper. He is not being drafted in the top 60 currently, but he's someone I would target round 7. Probably round 7 is when I'm starting to target Miles Sanders. 6, 7. Maybe I'll push up to 6 to get him. If I see him in training. In preseason, if he impresses me, then I'll move him up to 6. But right now, I would pick him 7th round.
I would not pick him that high, but I guess I value Miles Sanders. And I don't think he...
is it because of Jordan Howard, or is it because you think rookie...
I don't think he is a clear, defined role yet. And maybe if he finds it, that 3rd week of preseason, he just goes out there and impresses everyone and says, all right, we're going to make this guy our starting running back. Then, yeah, his value goes higher. But if our draft is happening tomorrow, I wouldn't take him until at least...
It is notable to mention that Jordan Howard is a capable running back. It's not like It's not like,
he's a slug.
Latavius Murray is trying to be their number 1 running back, right? A guy who's more of a second, third option in the running. It's not like they have a guy that, can he handle. So I think Jordan Howard's a capable running back. He may start week 1, like I was talking about, but Miles Sanders to me.
over the long haul.
long haul is going to be a guy you want to have on your roster because
Yeah.
I think he's going to boom. He's my number one sleeper.
Personally, I wouldn't take him until I'd say the 10th round.
Oh,
but
no way he's falling to the 10th round.
You don't think so?
No way.
I'm sure.
And every mock I'm doing, he's a 6th, 7th, 8th round pick.
Really?
There's no way he gets to the 10th round.
Maybe I just don't know fantasy. All right. My number one sleeper is Adrian Peterson from Washington Redskins. I can't believe we're at the point where like the best running back of our generation is considered a sleeper. But Darius Geis just got another hamstring injury.
He just got another hamstring injury?
About a week or two ago, I think. They were talking about it. And Adrian Peterson is he had played great last year. I think Nick's fact checking this Darius Geis. But Darius Geis, a guy who's never played a snap in the NFL, and everyone's saying, oh, he's definitely going to be the number one guy above Adrian Peterson. I'm not so sure about that. I think Adrian Peterson's going to be the number one guy there. He's going to impress just as much as he did last year, and I think the Washington offense is going to be interesting. What are you laughing at?
No, I'm just. You talk about Adrian Peterson. The only concern I have with Adrian Peterson
Is his age?
and he is 30.
Is that why you wrote 34 on your paper?
He's 34 years old. And,
I see him write down the number 34. I'm like, what?
and
Yeah.
so for you to, I was talking about Adrian Peterson getting him late. He played well last year, but he's a 34-year-old running back.
And maybe mid-season there's a changing of the guard a little bit.
But to me, to draft a 34, you're obviously a sleeper. You're saying you can get him way late in the draft, so you can cut him if it doesn't turn out. It's not like you're using a top 5-6 pick on him,
Right.
But the only thing that comes to my mind, and it scares me, is 34 because that is very old for a running back. And Adrian Peterson, he has had ACL injuries in the past.
Yeah.
He looked good last year. I'll give it to you. He looked good last year. As far as do I think he'll repeat this year, I would tend to say it'll be more 50-50. It may not even be Geis. There may be other backs that they pick up and they work a committee. But 34 years old scares me on Adrian Peterson. If I'm relying on Peterson to be my RB2, then I'm concerned.
I'm thinking more flex with him. I'm thinking round 9 or 10 is when I'm targeting Adrian Peterson. His ADP I think is around there if I remember right. So he's not a guy like you have Miles Sanders real high. I think
right.
I already have
I can agree with you on sleeper. Draft him late. He played well last year. He can play well in spots for you, but it is notable to say
34.
that he is 34 years old, and so that
Grandpa.
Yeah. Number 2 for me, Darrell Henderson. I keep talking
From
about
the Rams.
Him. Obviously, I have Todd Gurley ranked 20th in my PPR rankings, and so I have Darrell Henderson here. I talked about this in the mock. I think he's going to be that. Sean McVay came from Washington. He was the offense coordinator there. They had Chris Thompson as the pass-catching back. They kind of worked him in on running downs. I think that's what Sean McVay's plan for Darrell Henderson is. And if Todd Gurley does re-aggravate the injury, if they do rest him because they're trying to use him in the playoffs, because they will make the playoffs, I think Darrell Henderson is the beneficiary there. I don't think Malcolm Brown is the number 2. I think it goes Gurley, Henderson Brown, and Gurley at 10 to 12 touches a game, and you see Henderson bump up and get a lot of that workload. So he's my number 2 sleeper.
Yeah, and I'm not as high on Henderson as you are, and I think there's a lot more people on your side than there are on mine. But he's going to be an interesting name to watch out for. My number 2 sleeper is Kalen Ballage. Yes, I do have Kenyon Drake at 16, but I think if you take Kalen Ballage it looks like he's being drafted 12th in the 13th round.
You would draft both of those running backs and have them on your team?
I don't know if I draft both of them. It depends
or are you
on how
saying
the
if you don't get Drake, get Ballage? Because I'm not comfortable drafting 2 running backs that are on one of the 3 worst teams in football who could have Josh Rosen starting as quarterback.
Yeah.
So as far as Kalen Ballage, he's a sleeper. I everything you read out of training camp is he is actually eating into Kenyon Drake's potential touches.
It's looking like 45-40 for Kenyon Drake is what it, yeah.
And so I see where you're going with Ballage, but I would never stack 2 running backs on a one of the bottom 5 teams in football.
That's not what I would do either. I think Kenyon Drake 16 for me because I think he has the ability to explode. I think Kalen Blige has the ability to explode just as much as Kenyon Drake. It's kind of like a 50-50 shot for either of those guys.
But you're not, so you would not target to have both those guys on your roster for week 1.
No, I'm not a big guy. I'm not big into handcuffing. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I like, who are trying to seek Darrell Henderson as a handcuff. But
I don't think Darrell Henderson's.
I don't think either. But just as an example, I'm not real big into handcuffing.
Right, a handcuff example would be Alfred Morris for Zeke Elliott, something like that. So I kind of see where you're coming with on that. But.
I'm not a big handcuff guy, but Kalen Ballage or Kenyon Drake, both equally have the ability to explode. It's going to be one or the other. It's not going to be both of them. So please do not target both of them. Kalen Ballage. Go ahead with your third.
And I just want to touch one last point on that.
Okay.
I will not draft. There's a chance I could draft Drake if he fell to the right spot, but I'm not going to have both these guys on my team because, like we just said, they're a bad football team. So I do not suggest having them both on your team. You just said don't have them on your team. Have both of them. But if you have one out of the 2 on your team, you can work with that.
Yeah.
But you definitely don't want to have both on your team.
And you don't want to rely on either of them, especially in like the weeks 1 through 3. I bet as a reliable starter.
We'll have to see what happens because Drake is efficient. He's a good pass catcher. He does all this, but they still don't want to give him the full workload for whatever reason. I don't know if it's practice. Is it something where Adam Gase never gave him a full workload?
Yeah,
and so there is that concern. Number 3, I keep talking this guy up, Justin Jackson.
Yeah,
the L.A. Chargers, not the San Diego Chargers. The L.A. Chargers.
I said L.A.
No, a lot of people say San Diego.
Okay.
I didn't say you, but
okay.
Justin Jackson. Justin Jackson averaged 4.1 yards per carry last year. He's a young running back. He doesn't have a lot of miles on his legs. I think Austin Eckler is the number 1 running back if Melvin Gordon doesn't show up. But I still think Justin Jackson has a role. You've seen it last year. If you paid attention to the Chargers, which I did, Justin Jackson, someone you want to draft.
Shot at me.
And this is a situation where we just talked about you don't want to draft a handcuff. But for me, if I draft Melvin Gordon, if I draft him, I am definitely targeting Justin Jackson.
Okay.
And that's there's a very few handcuffs I'll go after, but Justin Jackson,
is one of those
handcuff
guys.
Or not, is the guy because I can get Justin Jackson in the 12th, 13th round.
Yeah.
I think that's a steal, and I hope you don't pick him in our draft, but
now
that I say it, I hope no one picks him in our draft in the 12th, 13th round.
That's a problem with us is because we have friends and family who listen to this are like, yep, we know who this guy is.
Right, but if you're Justin Jackson, young running back, efficient running back, I think Eckler gets the work. I think it's probably, if Melvin Gordon's not there, it's 55% Eckler, 45% Jackson.
Okay.
So I think Eckler gets a little bit more, but you're drafting Eckler much higher than you're drafting Jackson. You're drafting Eckler in the 6th, 7th round. You're drafting Justin Jackson 12th, 13th round. So there's better value getting Jackson over Eckler.
I'm taking Jackson as my flex just to make you mad. I'm just kidding.
Who is your third flex?
My third sleeper is
sleeper.
My third sleeper is Devin Singletary, rookie for the Buffalo Bills. I think he's already the receiving back in that offense. LaShawn McCoy keeps going on, going to reporters and on social media saying, I'm the number 1 running back. You guys can trust me, even though we haven't been able to trust him in Lord knows how long.
A
couple years. So I think this is going to be his swan song, kind of like I'm on my way out. I think Devin Singletary, there's a bit of changing of the guard. And Devin is going to – there's a huge competition between those two and 2 other guys who I am failing to remember right now. But I think Devin Singletary has –
TJ Yeldon.
TJ Yeldon's one of them.
Backfield, so
I think
I like that. I like that pick for sleeper. Devin Singletary. I have no problem targeting him late in drafts.
He's someone you can get in the, I think, 12th, 13th,
You can get him
14th.
at the end of the draft.
Yeah.
Before you pick your kicker defense, you can get Singletary. And for me, at least, when I'm drafting, I want to make sure I have at least 2 guys on my bench. At least 2 that I have upside. I want to have at least 1 or 2 guys. This is my bench. I want to have 6 bench spots. I want to have 1 or 2 guys that are safe. like a Lamar Miller, a guy that Marvin Jones, someone that you can plug and play week in a week and be comfortable with that. Then I want to have guys that like Miles Sanders, Henderson, Jackson, that I think can have an increased role throughout the season and will benefit that 12th, 13th round pick. So I want to have 2 safe, 2 potential upside, and then, 2 best available players.
This would have been great to talk about during the mock draft episode, but we'll never mind that.
But that's, if you have that 5-6 bench spots, you're wondering, what do I do with them? I target 2 young players that have the chance to, have big roles in their offense, Jackson, Henderson, and Sanders, and then I go with a couple safe guys, a Marvin Jones, a Westbrook if he fell. Some guys that
Westbrook.
Yeah, D.D. Westbrook. You can plug and play, and you're not stressing about it. I'm starting Marvin Jones and my flex player this week. I can deal with it. You know what I mean?
Right. And yeah, great bench advice.
Right.
I might have to remember that when I'm doing my mock drafts or my actual draft. Devin Singletary is my 3rd sleeper. I think he's not going to have the job day 1, but I think over time he's going to be someone who wins the job.
I agree with you on that one.
Yes. On next week's podcast, we are going to be talking about next week's podcast. We're going to be talking about our top 25 wide receivers, PPR rankings. Again, we're going to go over the news and notes, of course. And I want to make clear this is a podcast that's happening every Friday. We didn't really say that at all last week, but we want to make sure you guys know this is happening every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, of course. And you guys can look forward to that on your Friday drive home.
And lastly, if you have any questions as far as like fantasy questions, draft questions, any questions you got related to fantasy, you can send them to our Twitter page or our Instagram page, or you can even get to the contact us on the website. You can send your question and we'll answer your question for you. Just leave a question or 2 that you have regarding fantasy, and we'll address that question in the
and it can be a reply, or it can be a comment on a picture that Nick runs the Instagram, I run the Twitter. It can be a comment on one of his pictures, and we'll know that
do you want to give the Twitter handle real quick?
Yeah, Twitter handle is at @Primetime_fantasy, PRITI_fantasy.
And you can even just type in on a Google search bar. You can just type in Primetime Fantasy Twitter, and it will link you to that. And on Instagram, it's at Primetime_fantasy, and on the Instagram page there's a link in the bio that'll lead you to the website. It's easy. It'll get you to the website. If you can't log into the website by typing it in the URL, you could just go to the Instagram, click the link in the bottom of the bio. It'll bring you to the website.
And the link to the website will be in the description of this video as well.
Right.
Our email, if you're curious, pritifantasy@gmail.com. For any related questions or for any business talk. We have other Primetime, any fantasy pages that are listening to us. We'd love to collab, do business with you.
And I just came out with my 2019 draft kit.
Yes.
It's on the website. It's under Nick's articles, and it'll be the draft kit there. So if you want to check that out, you can.
I'm releasing my draft kit soon. I don't know. I would guess before next week's podcast. It just depends on how busy I am, because I have a few projects along with this that I'm working on. So thank you for listening to the Primetime Fantasy Podcast. We're doing this every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for listening to the podcast.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a nice day.